Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Excited to sit down with Lee Trepeck. Lee, how are you? Good to see you.
So good to see you too, John.
Yeah, we were together this weekend. Our kids both play varsity tennis and had a tournament. They did great. So, Lee, I've been looking forward to chatting with you because Lee Trepeck is director of Camp Maas and runs Tamarack camps. And this whole summer was just a completely, obviously different summer because of COVID. I've been talking to a lot of business people on this podcast over these, really since COVID hit, and talking a lot about just how they've pivoted with COVID. And one of the most pivoted businesses were summer camps, because I would say 90+% of them were canceled. And so I wanted to kind of chat with you about how you guys, how Tamarack camps, where I went as a kid, I was a Model specialty Western trip, Camp Kennedy camper. I had the best years of my life. How did Tamarack pivot this summer? I mean, this is a major event for many people, but specifically we're zooming in on just your business of camp.
Well, first of all, John, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a thrill to watch our son, Andy, be part of the tennis team, as you said, with your son.
Yeah.
He's happy to follow in Jacob's leadership style. And I am, again, so happy to answer this question as we're proud of the successes that ultimately took place in our pivot.
Yeah.
I will share with you that it was a process for Tamarack camps. That pivot began on March 13th. That's the date that our office closed, as so many began shuttering right at about the same time.
Yeah, I did a huge workshop for a company, big training for the entire company, and literally like the next day, everything shut down.
Yes. Okay. So we went through the same as so many camps across the world did. And that's, John, really when we went to work on the pivot. Tamarack Camps is an agency that offers, beyond its traditional summer camp flow, we also offer off-season programming, off-season meaning beyond the summer months. And that meant so many schools that we were accommodating and congregations for family camps that would be part of our programming from March, April, May into the month of June, where summer camp at main camp and beyond would reach. And we had made, shortly after March 13th, in consultation with our medical team and lay leadership, as we're governed by a board of directors, the very difficult decisions initially to cancel Tamarack Adventure and Retreat Center, again, our off-season programs, which also included then our family camp programs. It's at that time that we went through the very difficult process of a pivot, which was really how, if at all, could we run our traditional summer programs? That would mean at Camp Maas and, John, beyond Ortonville, Michigan. So where you mentioned, and you were part of Camp Kennedy, Agree Outpost Camp, our Western Alaska trips, our trip to Israel, all of that began to become part of our decision. Could we run Tamarack camps outside of Ortonville, which would mean Western and Alaska around the country, which would mean Israel internationally, Agree Outpost in Canada internationally, and with the consult of our medical team continuing these conversations, we did conclude from a health and safety perspective that to organize our summer programs would become too much of a risk against the backbone of the priority of our agency's principle, which is health and safety first. And I'll add that during this pivot, with every step in the process, we would say, maybe we could jump it. Maybe we could jump this hurdle. Maybe we could jump this hurdle. And then there became a question of, yes, but should we? From a moral perspective, from an obligation to feel that we want to protect the health and well-being of our own community and those that we may travel to. And from a perspective of what were we promising to our campers and staff members if we were to proceed something much differently than what they'd originally planned for. And our alternate plans were not feeling comfortable to the spirit of what ultimately we believed was our best foot forward.
Yeah, and let's talk about kind of what you pivoted. Like, there's that decision, and then there's the pivot. My kids are at the age this past summer where they were done going to camp, but they were going on a Western trip. They were going to Israel versus they went to camp for many, 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 many years. But the energy of going to camp, right, is, that is, and I know as a camper, there's nothing like getting on that camp soil and leaving home and like just unplugging from your family, the world. I mean, there's nothing like it. And so there's that emotional element too that you had to, kind of keep up for the kids. So what did you do throughout the summer to reconnect to everybody, to reconnect to the emotions, the feeling, the consistency, all of that type of camp stuff?
Great question. Our initial answer to this, John, was we are unable to replicate that exact magic that you just described. The feeling of jumping on the bus, being on the soil, connecting to new earth, that's impossible to replicate. It's why we wanted, in so many ways, to get there if we could. When we concluded that we could not or should not, the feeling became, how can we offer an experience much differently than what typically they've received, but still allowed them to taste some of the sweetness of camp? And it looked a lot like this. We committed that we would offer programming and offer opportunities for kids online. That was our first step. And it looked, from a Jewish perspective, as a Jewish camp, by including Kabbalat Shabbat services and Havdalahs. It included Israel Day in partnership with the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit, Hillel, JARC, partnership agencies that we work closely with. We committed that we would give still a Jewish lens to our summer programming. And we also committed that we would create highlight programs, not on a daily basis, but on a regular, ongoing basis, almost like our summer calendar has highlights during the summer. We recreated those highlights online. And so we offered big events, a Tamarack Idol, a song session, staff recs, camper reunions. And we logged on just like this and found that hundreds and hundreds of our stakeholders were participating.
Yeah.
We created alumni reunions. And in the traditional summertime, we may have the benefit of some entering our campgrounds. In this case, this summer, hundreds from around the world rallied around the flagpole online on Zoom and participated in song sessions and spirit and conversations and old stories. And so through the mechanism that we take away during a traditional summer, technology, we embraced so that we could connect and so that we could find the sources of joy, albeit differently. A couple other notes I want to mention.
Yeah, please.
We worked hard to create a social justice program during these difficult times. And our Farber Farm, I'm so proud to say, continued its operation under the leadership of our farmer, Alex Rosenberg. And we donated 2,000 to 2,500 pounds of food around the community to those in need. And we added onto our schedule for Tikkun Olam Tuesday other opportunities for us to reach out to important populations and show the Tamarack neshama and the soul that we believe should be part of these challenging experiences. And through that, we found that we could really balance what would still be health and safety and give some then of a benefit to others that we could lean on. And I'll add this as the final point. We concluded when we pivoted, if there was a way at any point that we could get into the community directly, we would also make that happen. And on August 17th, we found a way. And in consultation with our medical team, we went to 4 community areas and brought our green bus and brought camper awards, 3, 5, and 8-year awards. And we said to the kids, this counts. You matter, and we haven't forgotten.
Yeah.
And this summer should count is another one in the long history of summers that each child has been with us. And we distributed those awards on a very special day with a climactic point of a drive-in movie. And I know you had the pleasure of speaking to Jackson and some of your
they were great.
podcasts. Jackson Partridge and his team and Danny and their group created such a beautiful opportunity. We brought in another 100 plus cars and more kids and families that could participate in a different way to enjoy the Tamarack magic. Again, not on our soil, but as a part of the story.
Yeah, I love that. I love everything you're talking about right now. As I'm talking to you, I can smell Tamarack when I was a camper. I can get the same visceral feeling. And you said something about giving people kind of, this piece of the soul of camp. And I just want to kind of reverse engineer that for a second, because as a business coach, I'm in companies all the time, pre and post COVID. And one of the things I have found is that post COVID, companies are getting, everybody had to kind of redo their 3-year vision and that had to do, they had to update their values to connect back to the soul of what their business was going to look like over the next 3 years. And so for you, for a company, a camp that has always been able to launch and have so many brand ambassadors, just singing the praises of Tamarack, how have you guys updated your 3-year vision of what camp may or may not look like with a plan B, as we move forward over the next couple of years?
It's a great question. We embraced our core values to lead us forward.
Yeah, you have to.
And I'll share that living Jewishly we'd spoken of, and we embraced the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit and partnership agencies and said, let's look down the road. We worked hard to create safe spaces today and beyond. And as a core value, we said we have to still provide some emotional experiences, and they may look different, but if we could find them, albeit online or in the future at camp differently, let's continue to embrace it. We said, let's be financially fair today and beyond. And I'm proud to say that Tamarack made a commitment in its hardest times in the history of this agency to be financially fair and respectful of financial ability. And by way of support in this community, this year and beyond, we were able to provide full refunds to all of our camper families that requested it. And that continues to be part of our drive as we go forward and look to a 3-year plan that continues to steer our emphasis being financially fair. And 2 more that I'll add. We said we have to build an inclusive community, and we're looking at that today at Camp Maas, at all of our other areas of the agency and beyond. How could we include more? How could we be part of a social justice, of a calling, and be able to answer even more sensitively needs that exist? And that steers us today and beyond into the years to come. And I'll add the final core value, developing people and create their best selves, help them find it. And that remains a part of the emphasis today by way of the hard work of our year-round staff and senior leadership that continues to work hard, even in the off season, John, where we reached out to camper families and camper parents, and we celebrated simchas and mitzvahs and wrapped ourselves around that today. And we're already talking about future opportunities with these kids where we'll continue to help them to develop into their best selves beyond this summer and into, as you said, a 3-year plan. So our core values today that steer us, they are steering us as we reinvent what these upcoming years could be, and learning so much from what just took place.
Yeah, no, I love what you're talking about right now. My question is for anybody as a business leader, as a business owner, it doesn't matter what, embracing your core values that you're talking about are key, and doing what you're talking about is also key. But what's key is about doing it consistently. And I find that a lot of people, a lot of companies can't keep it up, right? And so I love that you're talking about, investing in your people and their potential, because within that, I'm making an assumption is making sure that those are the type of people on your bench that can actually execute what you're talking about consistently. because I would venture to guess that, you get one kid doing it the wrong way has a ripple effect. And so how do you stay consistent when it takes so much time and energy to do it?
The team. As a person who went to the University of Michigan, I followed this statement very hard that was emphasized on the football field. We put it into our offices. It's all about the team.
Yeah.
And we surround ourselves, John. I'm very proud of the talent that works at our agency to answer your question the best way we can. Even knowing that the team is operating under more questions than ever, more unknowns than we have ever seen or wrestled with, and that it takes more to manage than ever before by way of a financial challenges, the revenue hardships that we're balancing. It takes a team within and the broader team outside. That's the Jewish Federation. That's our community. That's our lay leadership. That's our board members. Those voices help and is such a part of what we say, the team. So the bench, the team, it's this community. It's who we work with day to day. And it's answering in the most heart-wrenching of ways, those things that we don't know, so that we could come up with the best that we're able. And we found that the support has really enabled us to carry forth from the summer of 2020. And we continue to look at them as we continue to look at the years ahead.
Yeah. When you talk about heart-wrenching, it makes me think of the kids who, especially the younger generations or the ones in their senior years of certain villages at Tamarack, who weren't able to go back. And that is a really big void. And so with Tamarack, how many campers do you, how many kids come through Tamarack each summer?
Sure. Through the course of a summer, we're approximately 1,500 between staff and campers in our programs, summer programs.
Right. So you have 1,500. So what did Tamarack do to help fill that emotional void that you're talking about? The events, I'm sure, but last week I had a mental health awareness week because I just felt like I had watched this documentary called The Weight of Gold. If you haven't seen it, it's incredible, by Michael Phelps, who talks about having suicidal thoughts as this just incredible Olympian as well as other Olympians. And so I felt I just wanted to dedicate a week to it. And so it was incredible. And so I'm just curious, what role did Tamarack play in helping that emotional energy void that the kids were experiencing?
Really important question. I'm glad you're raising it. And I'm familiar with the Michael Phelps story.
Yeah.
And we answered stories akin to, perhaps not exact, from an emotional standpoint by way of the strength of our camper care team that continued to work and continues to with our campers that required some specific outreach. Our social work support has been so strong and such a part of our summer experience that we offer to the best we can ongoing relationships to stay as healthy as we can emotionally. And you're right, John, this is a setback for campers, and it was why it was so heart-wrenching. It wasn't about the sadness our year-round team felt driven within. It was a sadness for what we felt the campers and staff members were without that opportunity to come to camp. So we reached out as a team and made direct calls and learned where campers and staff members may need additional layers of support and help. And then as a team, we went to work and said that they continue to be part of our community. And we worked directly, even with parents that asked for advice or counsel. We listened to what families wanted. It's what led to our Thursday videos that we put out on a weekly basis by way of specialty areas. And those campers that really missed the trips, we offered a program on Tripper Stew, how to make a favorite dish, which you might remember from your years, or those that loved arts and crafts, how to create a lanyard, or those that loved animals. We put on a Teva, a nature show, and reintroduced our animals. And these are the ways that we were able to hear what people wanted and in different ways, either connecting directly or more broad-basedly, for something for people to hold.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Listening to your clients and moving in real time. Let me ask you a question. So a lot of people who will listen to this will know you, and you're the greatest. You're full of so much energy. I don't know many people, if I don't even know if I can count on one hand, that have the level of energy that you have. There's so many comments, that people have could, oh, Lee's the greatest, and you really are the greatest. You're a great human being, and you give kids this amazing experience, and staff as well. But to the people who are listening who don't understand camp, right? So I went to camp as a kid. My kids have gone to camp their whole lives. But people who don't understand camp say, you must be horrible parents. What do you mean you send your kids away for this entire summer? It's like almost impossible for people who aren't into camp to understand that element of. And so can you talk a little bit about just why kids go to camp, whether it's half the summer or the whole summer, and just the benefits of camp for those? Because I was doing a talk at PayPal, and one of the directors there, it was right before the summer. I said, "Oh, my kids are going to camp all summer." She said, "I never even heard of people going to camp all summer." And from that, she ended up looking into camps to send her kid to camp. So, talk to the people who need an understanding of why camp is so special and important for kids.
I'm happy to add that. First, I want to say I'm humbled by your very nice, thoughtful words, John. Thank you for sharing such a nice compliment. And second is, I always remember in my job what it felt for me as a kid.
Right.
Here's a story. When I was 7 years old, I went to camp, and I was so scared and nervous. And the thought of being away for a month at that age was daunting. First, it felt totally comfortable until I got off the bus and got onto the ground and didn't know where I was, didn't know who to look for, and felt alone. And then I remembered that the night before, my dad said to me, "Lee, you're going to be great, and your counselor's going to love you." And I walked around looking, and this really tall person with a sign that I couldn't really read very well had approached me. I introduced myself, said that I was lost, my first time here, and he said, "Oh, I'm your counselor. Let's walk. We could go together to the cabin." So you have to picture this really tall person, 7 years old, really little, and standing next to him. And as we're walking through the woods toward the cabin, remembering the voice of the day before, I looked up at a really, what seemed like really tall person and said, "Dan, do you love me?" His answer was, "Yes." And I took his hand and we walked. That's what I always remember. Be present, be available, be engaging, be caring, be nurturing. That's camp. It teaches how to be nervous and scared and embrace it, and then hold it with someone who wants to take you forward sweetly and nicely. That's camp. That's why we do it. It's to watch a camper grow beyond original comfort zones and find that person can achieve success. And it's the appreciation of doing it in an outdoor safe environment where technology isn't interfering with our activities, that out of our comfort zones, we become more comfortable. And I remember it as a 7-year-old first grader.
Yeah.
My goal, let's let every camper and staff member learn it, feel it, and teach it to the next generation. And then door by door. And those people that say, "I don't get it," they understand it and they teach it to the next generation. And that allows this beautiful story to continue. I often say, we're Tamarack Camp's the greatest place on earth, and a story that never ends, because these stories live when taught the right way. And it's the leadership that people can embrace from within that so often they didn't know that they had. And when you can do it in Tamarack Camps this way, with the support of a nurturing community, it allows you to see beyond your own self and in the windows of the world that just want to help people achieve their best selves. And that's motivating. And that's why I've landed in this job. That's why I love hearing your stories when we talk about Tamarack and what it meant to you.
Oh, yeah.
It's always time well spent to slow down enough and listen to the souls of the people that have been affected through a Jewish lens, actually I'll say through any lens, which makes it so special at our playground.
Yeah, for Tamarack for me was, and I'll just add on to that, and I'm putting these into words as an adult. I couldn't have articulated this way when I started camp at 13, but I got to potential in myself that I could not have gotten if I wasn't in camp. It gives you a moment to breathe and respite that I don't even think I didn't even know I had. I mean, I grew up in a great house. It was a lot of fun, but there was also a lot of chaos. And when I got to camp, it was like the greatest, meditation of my life. And I remember, at Camp Kennedy, portaging a canoe over my head for miles upon miles for a 5-week wilderness camp, thinking, what if I can do this? There's really nothing I can't do. And I tap into Camp Kennedy and the 10-day hikes and the 10-day canoe trips from morning till night, and a lot of the business stuff that I do to tap into some energy. So let me ask you this, Lee. One of the things last week I was telling you about this mental awareness week I had. The common theme with everybody I interviewed, from NFL athletes, to therapists, to people in rehab centers and running the centers, the common piece was gratitude. And so what does camp teach you about gratitude?
Our mission to be financially fair and to give dollars to kids who wouldn't otherwise gain this experience, but for the generosity of our community, is a giant thank you and sense of gratitude that we live in a place that values group living to its core and independent growth to such a high standard that we're supporting it. What a thank you. What an opportunity to know, not by name, the people who received the opportunity to come, but by a general notion that nearly 50% of our population is here because of some form of support. What a way to say thank you for giving someone an opportunity to live in a group, grow out of a comfort zone, grow to become a better person, a better leader, to gain independence. And that kind of support in this community is filled with such gratitude that it is truly, genuinely beyond words. It lives within in such a real space to say that we could give people this experience and see it continue for so many summers is what's the sort of the extra special piece about where I work.
I'm forever grateful to Camp Tamarack. Forever grateful. Lee, last couple questions. School started today for my kids, for your kids, for many kids around the country. Some have started last week. Some are starting after Labor Day. What advice do you give kids today to kind of keep that camp energy, in them? Because it's going to be a tough couple months doing remote learning. How do they? They talk people like, do your yoga off the mat, do your, Tai Chi off the mat. How do you live your, jujitsu in your life? So my question is how do you keep the magic alive when you're kind of going through a tough couple months, these next couple months?
John, if these were the last few questions, I could take this conversation circular. Pivot. And find the joy in a new step. Find an extra bounce that you didn't know existed. Embrace change, acknowledging that it's difficult. This is difficult. Today, John, where we're talking about our own children, reinventing what the first day of school looks like. Like you, we took a different kind of a first day picture today of our son in front of his computer in his room. And Jenny, our daughter, in college in a lecture hall that was practically empty, and typically filled with hundreds. And embrace it, acknowledge it, share that this is difficult. Know that it is hard. It is not the way the system has worked for so many years. And yet, in the unexpected curveball of life, let's find the way to hit the ball. Let's find the way to create a new step, a new move. As you said, get off the yoga mat and find a different source of comfort, knowing you could still exercise the muscles that you maybe didn't even know existed. And so we always say, embrace. Let's not run away from the reality of this. We have to acknowledge that health and safety standards are a priority. And within that, how could we create our better dance move? That was the pivot from this summer. And I think that's just a different pivot now into the school year. And by the way, I wish your kids, my own kids, and all the kids out there, as we talk about the first day of school, a sweet new beginning, acknowledging that it is not easy. And it's with this bittersweet emotion that we're all feeling as we try to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. That's a great answer to end on. Find the joy in a new step and embrace the change. I love that. My hope is that we get back to some normalcy, and that Tamarack is opening its doors and all camps next summer for the kids, the ones gone and love it, and the new kids that hopefully will experience it. Please tell everybody they can get a hold of you, Tamarack, and et cetera.
Sure. They could reach anytime by email at trepeck@tamarackcamps.com. It's on our website at tamarackcamps.com. Our phone number, 248-647-1100. And look for me in the community. Our name is Fresh Air Society. That's where we started. I would encourage everybody, John, at some point, find the fresh air outside of our homes where we're living. Take a walk, find the joy in nature, embrace our roots of sweet conversation to the best we can, knowing that the barriers, and I hope that they could find me as a part of that. We are available. We are here and want to be. As an agency that's had 119 consecutive summers, we're going to count this one, albeit in a different way. Looking forward to them contacting me and our team way into the next decade and into the next century as we move forward. And if we're ending, I want to say thank you, John. You're a part of the fresh air and a fresh perspective, and such a pleasure, as I really looked forward to having the chance to see you on the tennis court, and just as much to always listen to your stories and learn from you. And I'm grateful you've taken the time with me.
Well, thanks, Lee, and I return the gratitude to you. Grateful that you're on today, spending time talking to me, but more so, changing the lives of these 1,500 people and leading the troops every single summer, and just putting so much light in the world. We need that right now. It's so critical. So thanks for everything you do. Yeah.
John, can I say that thank you for the nice words? We do it with a team. I always say, and I'm honored to be a voice of many. And so I'm lucky to be doing it with so many people so passionately driven toward the flagpole of camp.
All right. Good. I love it. Lee Tamarack. All right.
Thanks, John.
I appreciate you very much. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you too.
And thanks everybody for listening. And if you want to get a hold of Lee, reach out to him. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, John.